You are now listening to ForAllNerds Show, a podcast about geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. ForAllNerds is hosted by DJ Benhameen and Tatiana Jones. ForAllNerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
ForAllNerds Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/ForAllNerds.
Welcome to the Fan Bros, the show where the bros are fans. Doodle.
And what's up, y'all, and welcome to another illustrious episode of the ForAllNerds Shows. The voice of the urban geek, where we discuss geek culture from the perspective of people of color. And as always, sitting in the captain's chair, it's your boy, DJ Benhameen, a.k.a. keep that same energy on when you see me, Arsenio Holiday, reading Rambro, Benny and the Jetsons, Wakanda's favorite DJ, the Kevin Bacon of the internet, the legend of Slapper Vance, here, back in the spaceship tonight.
And you are joined by your favorite,
Yes.
Tatiana King,
There we
a.k.a.
go.
Lex Luthor, Gin and Juice, Urso, Lambo Calrissian, Doctor Doing Something Strange for some change, the Wrath of Khonshu, the Lord of Lightsabers, and the King of the North.
What about the Wrath of King?
Yeah. Well, Tatiana King, the Conqueror. That's my good thing going right.
I mean, we're all suffering under the Wrath of King right now.
Oh,
but,
that's being said, as Benhameen alluding to, we have a review of Ant-Man Quantumania. It is out now. It is our full review of the film. We don't spoil any major story arcs or anything like that. But we do talk deeply about what we liked and disliked about the film. So make sure you watch or listen or both that as soon as you get a chance.
Because, we don't hold back, and you need to hear that perhaps before you see this movie. So make sure you go and...
Look at that, me stopping Disney's bag.
Look, ain't no stopping that bag, baby. And shout out to Disney. I never am stopping your bag. I'm always happy for y'all getting the bag. Y'all gonna get another bag. I just want y'all to get the bag responsibly. You know what I mean? You can't just be out here, jacking for beats, as Ice Cube once said.
He said, get the bag responsibly.
Yeah, man, that's all I asked. It's enough. You're getting enough bags. You have no reason to not get the bag responsibly.
Agreed. Absolutely.
No reason at this point.
Absolutely agreed. Benhameen, how you been? How are you holding up? I'm trying to figure out how everyone's holding up, considering there's been 7 UFOs. What are we supposed to do about that? I mean, are these UFOs? What's going on? There's asteroids. I mean, there's asteroids that always go through.
Yeah, that's always
meteorites, rather. They always come down through the Earth's atmosphere all the time. But it just seems like everything's coalescing at once. And it's just is it too late? Is it too late for us?
I mean, as someone who grew up with the threat of nuclear annihilation, this is nothing. This is
Okay.
small change for me. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Bring it. Y'all got to do better than that, dog. We could have blown ourselves up a long time ago. You think some aliens are impressing me? Come on, man.
No, fair enough. I did make a joke, though. I said, well, if this is what it is, New York going up first. And that's not good for us, because that's where we are. So,
like I said, nuclear annihilation, either way, we catching it first.
Yeah.
You're hearing it first. World premiere. Boo, 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 boo.
The way we just laugh at imminent
I'm
death.
dropping the bombs on it.
Instant kill. Okay,
Funkmaster Flex Night. Yeah.
But not the bomb drop, Lord.
Hard to get a ticket for Funkmaster Flex Night.
Yeah.
Oh.
But like you said, like that notwithstanding, it's kind of just a lot of things could have happened already by now. We've done worse to ourselves or
I
can do
had
worse.
to watch Ant-Man. Like,
but that's not terrifying you. But like, okay, but jokes aside,
it could have come before that. Solved a lot of problems.
Jokes aside, that doesn't like terrify you. Like the idea, and also it's two ways this could go. Like the idea that this really could be niggas coming down on us to come and invade, or the other way, which is what people were saying hilariously, like they could have just been floating minding their goddamn business, and we just shooting these niggas down, on sight, and it's just like, damn, these people is violent.
I'll give you a third option.
Niggas get shot every day.
Like it was something I read as a child. It was this thing about how, I think it was a Stephen King essay where he was explaining how when people always talk about how the world is ending, he's like, the world ends for people every day.
Yeah.
Niggas die every day, and that's the end of your world. So,
but it's not my world, okay?
Yeah, but but we can all. I know, but our timeline could all, at least on this planet, could all end at any instant. So to me, it's like, and this world only exists for my benefit. So, when I'm gone, that's all that matters, right?
Benhameen said, "Fuck them kids."
Yeah, so I'm just like, if I get taken out or if it get blown up and I get taken out, it's the same thing. So yeah, I just keep it moving. Like I say, Ant-Man.
Please, Benhameen.
I mean, like I say,
calm yourself.
It was really Thor: Love and Thunder. After that one, it was like, come on, fam. Like, yeah. Blow this hoe up.
But you said because you felt insulted, so you just didn't like that idea of being purposefully insulted like that.
Yeah, Ant-Man was not,
more. It didn't do that.
No, but it didn't do that. At least for me.
Okay.
Whew. But yeah, you know what didn't do that at all? What brings great joy to my heart, and something else we did announce on the Ant-Man trailer, but I mean not trailer review, but in case you haven't heard that yet, let me just give you, that same announcement right here. On October 19th, 2023, Tatiana and I will be at the National History African American of Museum and Culture or some shit like that. I never can get it right.
The Blacksonian.
The Blacksonian, folks. Y'all know what it is. We at the Smithsonian, the ForAllNerds. Is at the Smithsonian, baby. Font Master Fletch Knight, bring the bombs in.
Say it right. The National Museum of African American History and Culture. Yes.
There we go.
We have been invited.
The NMAAHC.
Yes, we have been invited by the Smithsonian themselves to
Double A
on October 19th at an event. He is never serious.
He's up down.
We are, first of all, we are deeply honored, deeply humbled, and really very appreciative that we were thought of in the first place, that we were recognized in the first place for this. But yes, we will be speaking about, I remember speaking about Black futures and heroism and things like that, because right now, starting March rather, the African American Museum is going to go into their Afrofuturism series. So we're going to
exhibition.
Their exhibition.
Afrofuturism.
Thank you. So we're going to be part of that rollout of that exhibition, which includes talks and all that, and also we're going to be speaking at the prestigious Oprah Winfrey Theater. So,
yes.
or they say the South Theater. So, I mean, we're
ForAllNerds associated with Oprah and the Smithsonian, all at once.
We're freaking excited. If you did not hear it in our voice before, we're exceptionally excited. I'm sure there'll be, as we get closer, we'll get more information about where you can get tickets and how that all works and the timing and all that. Inclusion is revolution, Benhameen.
That's all I'm saying. For those watching us right now on YouTube or twitch.tv, you just saw me put up the cup and it just says inclusion is revolution, because our slogan is truth to power. Inclusion is revolution. ForAllNerds being included at the Smithsonian is revolution.
I like that.
I feel like I need to start walking like I'm Umar right now. Walking down the street.
Oh, you talking about Dr. Umar? What? Oh gosh, but yeah, that's one of the big surprises that we've been holding on to, but we got tonight to talk about it. So, but there's more.
There's more.
And you know,
Oh,
that will
shit.
be announced.
I got an email about that more today. I got to answer
Ooh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that will be announced in time. But thank you, everyone, for your support, for your love, for your motivation. And we do truly hope we get to see some of you guys there.
Facts. October 19, 2023. Tickets will be on sale soon. We'll let you know when that is happening. But head on over to the NMAAHC
National
website.
Museum.
Yep, that's right. The National Museum of African American History and Culture website.
History and Culture, yep.
Head on over there. Check it out. You can check out the exhibition on Afrofuturism and what they have planned over there right now. You can check that out, even though it doesn't open in the physical till March. And very soon you will see our smiling faces up on that piece. So, you know, that is happening. Things are happening. And you know what else is happening? Tonight on the spaceship, returning, we have the legend himself, Matt Ruff. The reason why there is a Lovecraft Country TV series, the author of the Lovecraft Country novels. That's right, I can say novels now because there's two of them hoes. We got them back on the spaceship for the third time. 1, 2, 3. We'll be right back after this.
This is Yvonne Chapman. I play Javon on Kung Fu's CW. When I'm not on set, I am listening to For All Nerds.
This is Niambi. When I'm not busy doing the acting thing, the writing, drawing, illustrating, I'm listening to For All Nerds.
This is Shannon Houston, writer on HBO'S Lovecraft Country, and you are listening to For All Nerds.
This is Malcolm Spellman, head writer, Falcon and Winter Soldier. You are listening to For All Nerds.
It's Ihoma, writer for Lovecraft Country. When I am not creating, I am listening to For All Nerds.
My name is Damon Lindelof. I'm one of the writers of Watchmen, The Leftovers, Lost. And when I am not sheltering in place, washing my hands, and sheltering from squids, I am listening to For All Nerds.
This is Kate Herron. I'm the director of Loki, and you are listening to For All Nerds.
And what's up, y'all? And welcome back to this episode of the For All Nerds show. And as always, we are bringing you that hot fire on the spaceship tonight. And tonight, our guest is no stranger to being on the spaceship. The author of 88 Names, Get This House in Order, Bad Monkeys, The Mirage, Fool on the Hill, Sewer, Gas, and Electric, and of course, a little New York Times bestseller known as Lovecraft Country. And the upcoming sequel, The Destroyer of Worlds, A Return to Lovecraft Country. Please make some noise for the one and only Matt Ruff in the house tonight.
Well, that is a wonderful welcome. Thank you very much for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, you're like I appreciate you, Matt. And, you know, you're a great, reliable friend that we like to have on the show, talk about stories, just have conversations with. So, you know, definitely appreciate you being here.
Well,
we were also discussing, though, like every time you've been here, you know, not only have you leveled up in your life, the world has also responded by
every time
major world events. Like before we had you on, you know, just the first time we had you on, you know, Lovecraft Country, the show was just an idea, still being developed. Mm-hmm. Then you come back on in the middle of the pandemic. The show's popping.
Mm-hmm.
You leave our show and, you know, we have riots at the Capitol. And
right.
So, you know, what's next?
I was thousands of miles away from that happened. I had nothing to do with it.
You're this chaos agent, man.
I don't think you had anything to do with it other than, you know, I think that, you know, I'm
the butterfly flapping its wings in China.
There we go. There we go. There we go. Yes.
Okay. Well, what can I do?
I know you do stir some things up. Is all I can say.
Yeah.
You know, your work is very, you know, in a good way, inflammatory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that.
Versus, you know, the other way that we saw, you know, versus that way, which is, you know, more of a reaction. But how you been?
I've been great. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the giant mug. Drinking lots of coffee as usual. No, but I've been really happy that I'm just really glad that I got to write this book, and that, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will do well enough that I'll be able to keep going, because I do have a longer story I want to tell now. And as we say in my house when things go right these last few years, thank you, Jordan Peele, because it was the success of, it was the HBO series that put Lovecraft Country on the bestseller list and allowed me to go back and do more, which I wanted to do. So, it's exciting and a little scary, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think. And so far, the early reviews have been really good. So, and people are getting it, and they're getting it in the way I hoped that they would, which is always nice to see. So,
yeah, and you, I think I remember you telling us way back when with the first book, you said that you wanted to dive into the story, but considering all that has changed in the meantime, like, did you have any trepidation about going back into the world of Lovecraft?
No, it's funny. I was having a conversation with another podcaster yesterday, and he asked me, did the recent events change your attitude in any way? And my answer was no. I try not to, particularly with a book like this. I want to make it about my characters and what they're going through. So it's like traveling back in time, and my thoughts in 2020, 2023 don't matter. And even if I wanted to make a comment on the present day in some way, I also am a firm believer in waiting for a while to see what you really think, rather than just jumping out with the first thought to hit your head. So, but particularly with this book, I just don't want to tie it to a particular moment in time. I want it to be its own thing. So it's more a matter of figuring out exactly how I wanted to carry it forward. Like, very back at the beginning, when I first thought about, obviously this started out as an unsuccessful TV pitch. And then when I was talking to my agent about turning it into a book, we had this conversation about, I'm going to write this book. And my way of making it work was to imagine the book as like an imaginary season of TV, which is why it's got that episodic structure. And so that raised the question, well, do we pitch it as one season or multiple seasons? Because I had enough stories that I could have pitched it as a series from the beginning. And basically, you never know whether the first book is even going to be successful. And I, of course, have got this habit in my career of jumping from one genre to another. So there's also the question, what if I write the one book and I've said all I want to say and I'm bored and want to do something different? I don't want to get locked in. So we basically decided, write one book, do the best you can, assume it's the only book you're going to write about this. And then if you're still thinking about it and it does well enough that we can consider a sequel, we can always come back later. So I went into Lovecraft Country with that attitude, but I never got away from the idea of telling a larger story that would sort of carry things forward. And it was more a matter of, okay, I would like to do more, but it's either got to be this one book, or I want to tell a much larger story that's going to carry the story forward to 1964 when the Civil Rights Act passes. And that would be the point where the Safe Negro Travel Guide would go out of business, which is just like Victor Green. George's dream is to be able to go out of business with that particular project and just change the name of the travel agency to the plain old Berry Travel Agency, and just, now it's time to be a full American citizen and leave that noise behind. And so it's like, if I go back, I want to do that, but that's at least 2 and probably 3 more books, and that's a big commitment for me and for my publisher. And I do write kind of slow, so do I want to commit maybe 10 more years of my life to doing this? But what this thing would happen where people would ask me, well, are you going to write sequels? And I would always answer the same way. Well, I'd like to do it, but it's a big project. And after you're doing that for 2 or 3 years, at least if you know me, that means, yes, I'm going to find a way to do it. Because if I didn't want to do it, I would have just said no at some point.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't until the series happened that I realized, okay, this is my chance. If I'm ever going to do this, it's got to be now or never, and I want to do it. So I wrote the first half of this book, just to hedge my bets. I wrote the first half of this novel and took it to Harper and said, okay, this is what I have in mind, and this is what I want to, do going forward. And they were on board with it. So I at least, have a start, and I'm committed in my own mind that I'm going to find a way to finish the story now. But it will, hopefully it will be easier rather than harder. And one of the nice things I've discovered is that the sequels do go a little faster. I'm still not, Stephen King fast, but the fact that I know these characters, I know their world, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. It does make it move faster. And I've also have this idea that, Horace, young budding comic book artist, he's 12 years old in 1954 when Lovecraft Country starts. He's going to be 22 in 1964. So basically what I have this idea, I want to use these next books to just tell his coming of age story. And that's going to be like the through line that all of the other characters' stories are built around. And that gives me a nice roadmap. And then each of these books is going to be focused on a different aspect of what it's like to grow up. And this book is a little grim. It's about death and about coming to terms with mortality and finding hope in the face of that ultimate uncertainty of what happens when we finally die. And but that gives me kind of a way to choose among all these different it's always an embarrassment of riches with Lovecraft Country. There's so many different ideas I could use, and just a way to choose among them and figure out a way to fit them all together. This really helps with that. So far so good.
That's wonderful. I mean, and there is like an appetite for this. Like you saw, I mean, granted, and this is the interesting thing about it, like the live action, the HBO version, the adaptation is a multiversal version of your characters, right? And I remember we had that conversation about how, that was very all Misha, and then, your book is your book, and those versions of the characters are that. But as you know, like that appetite now for Lovecraft is still there. It's still very strong. It was strong. It was a strong reception for the show. It was strong even after the show didn't continue, and it still remains strong that people still talk about it to this day. So
I know. Yeah,
I would imagine people are coming after you like, oh, so Lovecraft. Like, what's that like? And how do you manage that, particularly that negotiation between, like, is it kind of a separation of church and state when it's like, look, these are the live action version versus these are my literary characters?
Well, for me, keeping them separate isn't really a problem. But yeah, I've got that vanity tab on TweetDeck that's just Lovecraft Country. So every time somebody talks about it, they're always talking about the show. They're not talking about the novel. But it's like people are still really hungry for that. And I wish I could tell you that the fact that this book is being published meant that the show was coming back. But unfortunately, they really are separate creatures now. The way it worked is HBO has the TV and movie rights basically in perpetuity, and I retain the literary rights to the original book, so I can write as many sequels as I want, as long as I don't take anything that was created exclusively for the TV show. And my original dream was that, this would be great. I get to go on telling my version of the story, and then I get to sit in front of the TV and watch Misha tell her version of the story, which I can already tell from what she had tweeted about season 2 was going to go in a very, very different direction than I want to take the novels. And I thought that was great. I mean, that in the same way that the first book for me was a proof of concept that Lovecraft Country could work at all. I just, I wrote it in part just to show people, no, really, this would be a good story. That would have been a great thing to show that you can take the same basic concept, the same named characters, and tell two entirely or largely different stories with them, and not exhaust the possibilities even with that, because if HBO wanted to put up the money, you could do probably multiple different versions of the same show, because there's just so many ways you can take it. And but unfortunately, for whatever reason, and they of course never told me why they didn't renew it, but the TV show ended after the one season, and so now it's just me continuing my version of it. And I hope that at some point there will be, something more on TV. I think it's very unlikely at this point, particularly with the change in management at HBO. But also, the more time goes by, the actors have their other projects. I mean, Jonathan Majors is, and Journey have all got their other stuff they want to do, and of course, Misha killed Jonathan's character off anyway. So, but
I was gonna say.
I sometimes forget that, but it's like Star Wars. Nobody's ever really gone. So
no.
You have flashbacks and you have prequels and all that. So
and you have clones and you have whatever you want. Yeah. But okay.
No, go ahead.
No, I did. I have a back to the book because I do want to ask a few. We'll be here all night. We have a lot to talk about. But one thing about the book is You said that you've always had the idea that this could go on beyond from the original novel. But what was the spark that connected this book to the quote, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds"?
Well, that was the thing. It was like, again, I did have this idea about having Horace kind of take Atticus's place at the center of the story and just have his coming of age. There's a scene early on in the first third of the book where Horace and his mother have this conversation, the chapter called No Heaven at All, where they're talking about how you deal with this uncertainty, these awful things happen in your life, and he's basically just come to this young girl, Celia Fox, who's a minor character in Lovecraft Country. Shortly before the novel opens, she gets killed in a particularly senseless fashion, and Horace is over at the Winthrop house the next day, and her father is there stricken, and somebody trying to cheer him up says that thing that people say that, this is an awful cross to bear, losing a child, but at least she's in a better place now. And, that's the kind of thing Horace has probably heard before, but in this particular case, because he knew her and because he identifies so closely with her, it's just, it's kind of outrages him. And he's like, what do you mean she's in a better place? And then that leads to this bigger question. Well, wait a minute. What if this, nice story I've been hearing in Sunday school all my life about how we get to go to heaven when we die and there's a reckoning for all injustice? What if that isn't true? What if this life is the only life you get, and if it's stolen from you, or if you're cheated out of it, or if it's cut short, then there's just no reckoning for it. That's just all you get. And, Celia's 13 years old, and what if that's all it is for her? And once you ask that question, it's like a permanent loss of innocence, because people find their way back to faith, but faith isn't knowledge. And so you're going to be carrying the weight of this uncertainty with you the rest of your life. And particularly if your life is not that fair to begin with, that burden can be really crushing. So that just seemed like a really relevant question to sort of deal with in a book. And it's, personal for me as well. So I realized I wanted to talk about that, and Horace was a great way to talk about that. And to find a way to answer that question. So, and then as I was thinking about it, and I thought about this conversation he was going to have with his mother about how you do learn to bear that uncertainty, that was when I knew I had something I really wanted to say, and that was worth writing another novel for. That it was, I'm always going to love the fun adventure and the ghosts and the monsters and all that good genre stuff, and that's in here too. But this gave me something weightier to sort of hang on to and to bounce off against that and to combine with that. And I think that those two things together, in the same way that with Lovecraft Country, the horror and then the history of racism in America kind of just gives it a heft that either of those subjects alone, it's just better. The two things together are just more interesting and stronger and more inspirational for me. And so this was a new thing to talk about that sort of gave it that energy. So that was when I was just like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then thinking forward to, the next book, and now it's like I've got an idea for what the next chapter will be about. And the next one's going to be about, desire and dream and first love. And so with each book, I think I'll have now, because I've got this little roadmap for myself, I'll have something really solid and hefty at the center, and then still have all the fun adventure as well. And that just is really, that to me is just really inspirational. It's what I've loved about Lovecraft Country from the beginning. So
yeah. I would say I started reading the book, and I really enjoy your writing style. Like I was reminded why I enjoy the first book so much, because you did have an approach, like an episodic TV type of approach, and the way that, and I want people to understand that too, like if they're thinking about, well, should I get into this book? Like the way that you write action is very kinetic in the words, and it's you feel the pacing, and you feel the danger, and you feel the energy behind what's happening. Like particularly I'm remembering the scene, and I call it the scene, but the scene in this book where you have Montrose and Atticus running from their old sheriff nemesis, and they're running for the train. And like that, I felt a really palpable tension and energy within a very short space. And I thought that takes, and I think I love to study things like that, because the fact that you're able to build that much suspense and energy and effort in just a few words and a few lines, and you don't do too many flourishes with all of the adjectives and that. You just kind of say what it is, but it works out really well and it helps get the reader from point A to point B. So I think what I like most is that you take people who are reading on the journey, like they're constantly moving forward through the story. I think that's partly of what makes your book so enjoyable.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm really glad it worked for you that well. And it's kind of embarrassing because when I do interviews these days, of course, one of the questions that always come up is what are you reading lately? You know, what books do you recommend? And it particularly as I get older, what I'm finding is that I've always written in a kind of cinematic style, but now as I get older, I spend a lot more time just watching series and movies because that really speaks to me, and it fills that same itch of storytelling for me. And so, yeah, my written storytelling style has become more cinematic as I've gotten older, and part of that is that desire to keep things moving and keep it propulsive. And then, you do have the moments where you slow down and you have conversations, but I like action, I like excitement, and then I like finding things to say while that's going on. And so, but you do want to keep things moving, and that also helps you when you do slow down and try to talk about stuff that you use as many words as you need, but not more. So I just find it's very helpful. And part of it's just I'm old and I've been doing this a long time now. So it's I've had decades, practically a half century of practice. I mean, I started trying to learn how to tell stories when I was 5 or 6 years old. So I've been doing this half a century, which is kind of wow. Yeah, how did that go by so fast? But,
Oh wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
So, I know you've already talked about how this is going to be a multi-volume series, and one thing that we also talk about is how the difference between the series, the book series, and what would have been the second series of the television series. And one thing I enjoyed about the television series, or the idea of it, was that the family was going to use this magic and just be like, all right, we're going hard out here with it. Right. And in the book, it's more like they're like, okay, we got this magic and we'll help our people and people around us and do things here and there. But now they're reaching a point where the outside world is really bringing the heat down on them.
They have to, yeah.
So how much opposition is the family going to take before they start pushing back? And basically, I'm saying, can we get some, hard pushback in this book?
Yeah.
Well, part of, one of the big differences, I mean, it seemed to me that Misha was really going to go into full alt history mode. And
yes.
And one of the things I always wanted to the book, I always wanted to stay really close to the real world history. And so part of that to me means that puts limits on. One of the reasons I make magic so hard and so dangerous to use in the novel is because I didn't want to cheat. I wanted to, if like I remember in my notes to Misha when I was talking about why I made certain decisions in the book, and like one of the things was, yes, if you make it easy to bring people back from the dead, well, what does that do to things like the Martin Luther King assassination? Or if you can go back, if you have real time travel, well, how long is it until Atticus jumps in the, jumps in the machine and goes back to shoot Nathan Bedford Forrest in the face? So you've got to make a decision. Do you want to go full, power and revenge fantasy, or do you want to stick close to the real world? And part of that just is understanding that there are limits to how much power you have on your own. You really have to make alliances with people you may not necessarily agree with about everything. So one of the things I do want to start getting into more going forward is, initially I avoided giving Atticus a white friend because I didn't think that the audience needed a white friend to relate to. I thought if you're going to like this story, it's because you don't need that extra helping hand to get into the characters. But to tell the story or to talk more about the actual civil rights movement, you kind of got to get into the thing where we have to make alliances across races. We've got to hold hands with people, even if they don't necessarily see eye to eye with us, because that's the only way this happens. So I kind of got to put limits then on magic. If they become powerful enough to do it all themselves, then it departs from that reality, and then I'm telling a different story. And again, what Misha wanted to do has always struck me as certainly a perfectly valid way to go, and I would have loved to see it. But what I want to do, I want at the end of Lovecraft Country, I want you to feel like this is a story that could have happened in our world. It's just you never heard about it because, the occasional big explosions happened, in a part of the world or in a part of the country where nobody was around to see it. So,
man, now you're making me as if I didn't miss the show even more. Because now, I'm like, damn it,
like you're making us upset all over again.
We would have had these two sweet ass different stories, all at once.
Right.
Oh.
Right. And, even though, I talked earlier about how there's still technically a separation of these two versions of, or multiple versions of these characters, at the end of the day, because of this show, especially people who got really deep into it, or people who loved the book first, like myself and Benhameen, whenever I see Atticus in my head, I see Jonathan Majors. Whenever I see Letty in my head, I see Journey. Whenever I see Hippolyta, I'm thinking Ingenue, right? So after this whole, the whole construct of the show happened, like, do you find yourself seeing those images, those faces pop up in your head while you're writing each of these characters? Like, or do you still have your own, visuals of what these people look like now? Because at this point, I feel like anytime, like even as I was reading this new book, I was looking at those versions that I saw on TV.
It's a mix. It's like I sort of, I have my more amorphous vision of what they looked like before there was the show. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of both at once. It's like they haven't the characters from the show haven't completely replaced visually my image of the characters from the novel, but there's definitely there. I definitely think about them. So yeah, so it's an interesting thing, but also I'm trying hard not to be influenced by that because I've got my own way of looking at it. So yeah, but it is an interesting thing that yes, there are points where I'm envisioning, yeah, okay, hello, Michael K. Williams, and rest in peace, man. That was so sad, but yeah. So certainly there are points where I do grab that visualization, yeah.
And that's so interesting because I think this has come up on Twitter a lot lately. People have been talking about imagination and how like there's different forms, and people say, oh, they see in black and white or they see a color apple, and some people are saying I can't imagine an apple. And I, have a pretty vivid imagination, but at the same time, I've never been a person who casts things in my head. So when I read a book, I hear the voices, I hear different things, I see things, but I don't really see faces, I think I see everything but faces, really. Yeah. But now, like you said, it's Jonathan Majors, it's Michael K. Williams, it's straight up, and that's just how it is for this. And pretty much how it's going to be, as long as I'm reading this series. And even though these are different stories, and Horace is kind of amorphous in my head, like you said.
Now that's because he was changed. You remember, right. He was the daughter in the show.
Yeah, well, see, in my head, Horace kind of looks like it's this one young black actor from like the 80s, who has glasses and stuff. That's who I kind of think of Horace. But, that dude is like probably 40 years old now. So, it's definitely not him.
Well, since Benhameen's mentioning Horace, can we talk about him a bit? Because I love Horace in his audacity, and I always want to slap this shit on the AC out of him all the time. Like, it's just like, could you just wait a second? Like even in the beginning, like that real tense moment with the police officers when they were going to Nevada or in Nevada and at that border, and it was just like he's the outlier where it's so interesting how you say that you're trying to keep it so that like you could go but so far in your approach because you don't want to change history, right? But I feel like Horace is that one errant character. He's the variable that could change history, right? Like he was supposed to sit in the car and mind his business, but he jumped out. You know what I mean? So, like, do you ever sit there as you're writing this and you're just like, hey, man, Horace is out of control. Like, well, calm down.
Part of why, one of the reasons I feel really comfortable putting Horace at the center of the story and telling a story is because I remember what it was like being that age and deciding you want to do some totally impractical career, like write novels for a living or do comic books for a living. And you just assume that, oh, well, I know that it's supposedly really hard, but I'm going to figure out a way to make it work. And, it's like deciding you want to be an astronaut when you grow up and, that out of the billions of human beings who ever lived, 12 get to walk on the moon. And so those are terrible odds, but, every one of those guys who got to do it, they started by believing, well, of course I'm going to make it happen. And of course, you don't hear about all the other people who wanted to go who didn't make it. But it's not enough to believe you can do it, but that's one of the prerequisites, I think. And in the same way, I think now as he's getting older and he's getting into his teenage, he's still at that point where you sometimes you get out ahead of yourself and you do things that a more mature person would know, this is way too dangerous. You shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, stay in the car. And that's why your mom, when she gets the chance, will come and smack you and say, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. I like that you ended it with the slap.
Yeah, well.
That was realistic.
That's what my mother would have done to me in a situation like that. So, yeah. It's funny what you say about that actor being 40 now, because if Horace were alive, he would be, gosh, I could do the math on that. He would be,
way past
I have to see what actor you were talking about. So.
I don't know his name either. It's just like one of those kid actors. He has glasses, and he was like, he might have had a series, but he was definitely always on somebody else's show. So I'm going to have to Google him, and I'll find it, and I'll send it to both of you when I do figure it out. But it's so funny you mentioned that about being an astronaut and a writer, because I'm now a writer and creator and DJ and a lot of things where they're impossible odds, And at the same time, my first goal was to be an astronaut.
Really? Mine. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Up until the Challenger exploded, brother. I grew up in Houston. I was right there. I went to NASA, everything. I read every book you could think about, talk about the Apollo missions, all that. And then the Challenger blew up, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be a film director then, I was good.
I would love to go to space, but only after they figure out a way to make it really safe. And I'd be terrified all the way up and all the way down.
And I barely could stay in planes now, so I don't know what I was thinking. That was my first goal, was definitely astronaut. And then, so it must be something in creatives that, drives us to be like, okay, we can do the impossible, and, let's try and be astronauts first.
I mean, I think that's, a lot of people, if you make yourself think, it's like, I've got this calling to do this certain thing, and so I will find a way. And that unrealistic optimism is just part of what makes you go ahead and take the chance. And often with, and I was fortunate to have parents who were supportive, but I can understand totally why there are parents who, particularly if they come from hard circumstances, will look at that and just go like, no, you really need to become a doctor. Something where you will be able to pay the bills. So
we've seen how this story goes. You might want to go another way.
Yeah.
So now you talked about, that this is a multi-volume series. And one thing I'm not gonna lie to you, when I finished the book, I was kind of like, all right, so
he's like,
so that Netflix coming when, Mr. Ruff, like,
we can't.
It was really good and everything, but I'm like,
you want more? Good.
All right, now, and it upset me because it wasn't like, like where I was like, I picked up Harry Potter, well after it came out, so I could just read it all. Scott Pilgrim, I bought that like when there were 4 books out, and I just waited for the 5th, and I was done. This is now starting to feel like when I was a kid and I read the Dark Tower series. So please don't do that to me. Please don't, 20 years from now you finish.
No, I'm not gonna do a George R.R. Martin on this one. I wanna get it done, and I'm fingers crossed I still have plenty of time, but I want to get it done soon enough that I still have time to do other things before, while I still remember my own name. So my hope is I need a little bit of time to think about, I know how the next book starts. I know what it's about. I know roughly where it's going to go. I still need to figure some other things out before I actually start working on it. But it won't be, 5 years from now. I'm gonna try and get going. And again, I'm thinking I'm going to need 2 more books to really do the story the way I want. So what I may do is work on them both at the same time so that they will come out in relatively quick order. So, and yes, in terms of, by the way, I was just thinking, I mean, part of what is, you were talking about Horace maybe would be the wild factor, the one who's going to do special things. Well, that silver key that he gets his hand on, and the part of the next book is going to be about the, my version of H.P. Lovecraft's The Dreamland. So there will be some pretty wild stuff that Horace gets to do precisely because he is this creative person who happens to be in the right place at the right time. And again, it'll be taking place in the realm of dreams. So how much it will actually impact the real world is still a question that I'm working on. But I think it may scratch that itch you're thinking about at least a little bit. So
Well,
It sounds amazing.
that
I'm with
definitely
it.
sounds fantastic. But in the words of like the great Black Dynamite, I don't need a river of blood, but just give me a little puddle. Like just give me a little bit of,
Give me a taste.
and like you
Yeah.
said, those explosions don't have to happen where I can see them, but just make them be big enough explosions.
well, that's one of the reasons I brought the sheriff back as well, because
Yeah.
he's sort of the mundane version of what we're up against, and it's like having your own personal Bull Connor in the story. So that's going to be his role going forward. He's
Yeah, he
gonna
definitely reads that way.
So there's gonna be a big showdown with him at some point, either in the next book or the final book. That's what he's there for. So yeah, you'll get your moment, your bottle of blood on that.
And I know another thing that like people really enjoy, and myself included, just the world of tech that you have in here. Like the way I try to describe it in my head is like it's steampunk, Victorian, clockwork / sci-fi. Like the way you describe certain elements, certain mechanisms that work, like that scarab, like that's really cool. And like again, because that's coupled with your writing style, it's very visible in my head about what that will look like. And so, just how big are you going to go when it comes to like this tech? Like how much are you going to build on that? Or do you see yourself scaling back? Do you see yourself, making that more centerpiece, anything of that nature?
I mean, I'm thinking more about that stuff just because, there's going to be more of it just because part of it is I think I'm going to have Braithwaite, he's kind of got Ruby already. He's kind of seducing her. And I think going forward, he's going to find out about the key and he's going to try and sort of, in his own way, seduce Horace into his, make Horace his mentor. So Braithwaite's going to become Horace's white friend, quote unquote. So there's going to be more just from that. But it's interesting because I'm really weird when it comes to description. There are certain things like there are a lot of descriptive things where I just don't like to spend a lot of time doing description. But when it's functional stuff, like how stuff works or how machines work, then suddenly I've got plenty of stuff to say. But if it's more decorative, like clothing or just ornamentation, like it's like, oh, it's made of wood, it's made of silver, it's like minimal. It's like a sharp looking suit, but well, what does that mean? It just looks good. So So I get really into description when it serves a purpose and it helps you understand how things work, because I love understanding how things work. And that's probably why it seems kind of like steampunk, because whenever I get into the mechanisms of stuff, that's when I get kind of inspired. But so
no, it's really cool. And like I said, it just reads well, but I didn't notice that about it. So I am looking forward to seeing more of that.
Yeah. And also I love it because it reminds me of your style reminds me of Stephen King, like in the Tatiana was about how the action and tension is built up, but also through the use of the mechanisms that they encounter. Because whenever somebody pulls out something, it's always like that immediate feeling of dread.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
it's like, what is this going to turn me inside out?
Yeah, like somebody gonna die, like that. This isn't a spoiler, but just a line. Yes, get the drop on him. Yes, that sounds good. And it was just like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
So,
that was a really fun scene to write. And,
man, that broke my heart, though. I was just like, oh, no, this is going to go so terribly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. These people always underestimate what they're dealing with. It's like they get overconfident, and that's where it goes wrong, because they're ultimately just not as smart as they think, and the family is really resourceful. So and when their resources fail, they tend to get really lucky. So, but I'm looking forward to building Hippolyta's spacesuit so she can actually start doing stuff with that. I've got some really interesting ideas where I can go with that, and also just Letitia learning how to fly. I got a really interesting bit of business with airplanes before this is over too. So
awesome.
So I'm got a lot of interesting ideas going forward, and I look forward to doing it. So And that will get me writing faster.
And also, we don't need any traumatic world events before you finish these books.
Please.
So, yeah.
Stop flapping your wings, right? No more.
Just those balloons are not that big a deal.
Of course not.
Oh yeah, that is 7 UFOs, right?
Yeah.
7 UFOs. Jesus.
All right. Well, you have survived yet again the interview segment, but we do have our rap segment, our rapid fire questions, and since it's been a little minute, we've changed a few of them up. So, are you ready?
Sure.
All right. Luke Cage or Black Panther?
Luke Cage, actually.
Okay.
All right, I like that. Batman or Superman?
Batman. I gotta say, it's funny. Actually, it's funny the way those two answers play off each other. Like, I really like the idea of Luke Cage being invulnerable, and I one of the things I was a little disappointed in the Netflix series that they didn't do more with that. I really wanted to see, but yeah, between Batman and Superman on the other hand, his invulnerability, I understand the attraction, but for me, his invulnerability never worked as well for me. With Batman, I like that brooding, crazy vigilante thing.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to seeing Michael Keaton suited up again?
Not really. I mean, I much as I love Michael Keaton and other things, I think he's a great actor, and it sort of fascinates me coming from comedy that he wanted to do such interesting, serious stuff. But for me, the Nolan Batman is kind of just permanent. It's hard for me to imagine. Right? Yeah. And part of that, it's just that confluence of Nolan and particularly Heath Ledger, and then you've got the Hans Zimmer soundtrack in the background, which makes everything better even when it's not great. So yeah, that's kind of my ideal Batman for now, and I just don't know. I don't know that I will ever see another one that will impress me. But you never know. So I'm sure I'll watch it when it comes out.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's interesting. Then Michael Myers, Freddy, or Jason?
Michael Myers. I think partly because that was the first one, but that the thing I always loved about that character was that that he doesn't talk, he doesn't do anything. It's the thing that is so sure it's going to kill you that it doesn't even need to run. It's just walking after you. It's like that. The modern movie I think it captures that best is that It Follows movie. Yes. It's just so creepy. It's like you can't negotiate with it. It doesn't really have a motive. It just wants you.
Yeah.
And so.
All right, great answer. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. Even for all my disappointment with the everything after the first 3 movies, that's talk about something I would love to live long enough to see that go into the public domain and see what people would do with it if they didn't have to worry about what it would do to this $1 billion franchise. Because the basic concept is really interesting, but at this point it's just so there's so much riding on it, and there's so many things they can't do. Like I'm enjoying Andor was great. Yes. I'm enjoying these little side steps that let you do stuff that you haven't seen before. But the big budget things. Something what my CIA agent said, after there's a point, I think it's $50 million, that if a movie gets more expensive than that, then the studio interference goes through the roof. And so if you want to do a groundbreaking film, you gotta figure out a way to make it less than that, and then you might get away with doing things that otherwise would scare the studio executives and saying, no, we're not going to do that one. So
I fully believe that, and that's interesting because Andor. And that's even how I feel like the MCU, the Marvel Universe, is about to become, where I feel like the only things that are really be good in it are one-off little projects that they're not really paying attention to, like the Andors, because that slipped through the cracks and just became my favorite Star Wars thing ever. So
that's true. I've really enjoyed the little mini-series things.
Yep.
More than the last few movies. Like the movies kind of ended for me with Endgame, and there have been a couple of moments since, like the Thor: Love and Thunder was fun. It was it wasn't anything not life changing, but it was entertaining. But yeah,
that's our least favorite. That's why we're like, I hated that.
I'm one of those weirdos who thought the screaming goats were hilarious.
Oh man.
That's honest though.
Yeah, that's honest
though.
Well,
I know a lot of people thought that was just terrible, but me, every time that happened, I just started falling out of my chair, and I'm like, I know this is dumb, but I don't. Yeah.
Hey, if it made you laugh, then it's a good thing.
Right.
But on that note, what is your favorite superhero movie of all time?
I mean, probably The Dark Knight, I would say, is the one I return to most, and I really wish if Heath Ledger had lived, I think the version of The Dark Knight Rises we would have gotten would have probably have been my favorite, and I still think about that. I mean, The Dark Knight Rises, it's okay, and it's satisfying its way, but you can tell there was another movie he really wanted to make that he didn't get to make, and that's the one I would love to see. And I still have a soft spot for Blade, Blade 2 especially.
Okay.
Again, it's not great in some ways, but I did enjoy it a lot, and I go back to it fairly frequently. So
Blade 2 comes up a lot when we ask this question.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so
more often than you realize. Yeah,
you're not alone at all.
All right.
I thought Blade did a better job of telling a coherent story, but there was something about Blade 2 that just was really nifty. So
no, it was good. It was a good film. Just a couple more.
Sure.
In any medium, books, TV, film, anything of that nature, what character's death hurt you the most?
Nothing comes to mind right off the bat. I'm sure the minute we get off, it'll come to me, but at the moment, I'm not thinking of anything. I mean, the only one I can think of, and it didn't hurt me, but I guess it moved me at the time, was the Darth Vader's death scene. Which in hindsight is kind of ridiculous because the morality of that whole thing was just, you kill you blow up a planet, you kill billions of people, but I can feel the good in you, Dad. And it's like, okay. But at the time, when I saw that, I was young enough that kind of flew under my radar, and I was just like, oh, yeah, Darth Vader's dead. And, that's so, oh, his father, Yeah, but...
I can feel the good in you.
Yeah.
I'm never going to hear that line the same way now. It's such a, cop-out,
Well, but this is what I mean.
I can feel the good in him.
Yeah. This is what I mean. It would be great if this went into the public domain, because I'd love to retell that.
Oh yeah,
that original trilogy, but with a sense of morality that actually
makes sense.
Makes sense, exactly. That you could. There is a way to deal with that. Yeah, you find out your dad is essentially Hitler, or Hitler's right hand man, and still have a reckoning with that, but it would just be an entirely different and much more adult movie than what they did. In the same way that I think the idea of the Jedi, but if you imagine them as like a real religious force, like the Jesuits, who do both good and really awful things, that would be much more intriguing. But again, you're not going to do that for a $200 million movie, because you got to sell them tickets. So it's like, no, we need more AT-ATs and, cute little stuffed animals and stuff like that. So yeah, but those lucky people in 2100, when it's in public domain, they'll get to play with that. So
indeed.
All right. If you could have any one superpower, what would it be?
Immortality.
You got to live long enough to do those Star Wars lines.
Well, this is the other thing is part of it's obviously, the idea of dying is not fun anyway, but part of it is I really want to see how the story of the human race turns out. And it's one of the most annoying things about, other than just, the possibility of oblivion, is that I just really want to see where this is all going to go. And, I don't even need to participate necessarily. It would just nice to have a ringside seat to the human race and see how this planet's going to develop over the next billion years, that time we've got left. So, that would be...
You want to be the watcher.
Yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah, I could see that.
The ultimate introvert, just.
Just write books and, watch things go by, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matt Ruff, for joining us. Please let the internets know where they can find you at, as much as you want
just
to be
froze.
found.
That's okay. That's okay. But yes, thank you for joining us, Matt. Really appreciate you coming. Like we said, really excited about the new book and also just the future that you've shared with us thus far. I think it's going to be incredible. So can you please let everyone know where to find you, where to find your work, and what else you want to plug as well?
Sure. The website is bymatruff.com. That's BYMATTRUFF, so like a byline. And the book comes out February 21st. So I don't know when this is going to post, but it's either already come out or is about to. And it should be available anywhere, including on your tablet. So, and fingers crossed. But I'm really excited. And again, I can't thank you guys enough for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure to be here. So this was a lot of fun. And you're great.
Of course. Thank you, Matt, so much. All right, fam, we will be right back with more For All Nerds.
Yo, it's your boy Farrell Monch. I'm tuned in to For All Nerds.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Fantastic Frankie. I'm listening to For All Nerds.
What's up? This is E-Man, and I'm listening to For All Nerds.
Peace and elevation, everybody. My name is Crown, and you are now listening to For All Nerds.
What's up, everybody? This is Troy Jeffrey Allen, and you're watching For All Nerds.
Woo! And that was amazing. Once again, thank you, Matt Ruff, for joining us here on the spaceship for the third time in a row. 3-time champion representing. Thank you again. Make sure y'all pick up the book, Lovecraft Country, the Destroyer of Worlds.
Yes.
A Return to Lovecraft Country. In stores February 21st. And in fact, let me announce that right now. We're going to be giving away a few copies of this book. You'll be able to get your hands on one. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and on Twitter to find out how that's going down. And if you're one of the few, the proud, the millions
and millions
of patrons over at patreon.com/forallnerds, we're going to make sure y'all get your hands on some of these exclusively, of course. So, head on over there, patreon.com/forallnerds. Make sure you're following us on all the various socials, Instagram, Twitters, Twitch, For All Nerds, everywhere. You can watch us live on YouTube, on Twitch, on youtube.com/forallnerdstv. Go to YouTube, type in For All Nerds. We pop right up. Hit that follow button. Hit that subscribe button if you're feeling froggy on Twitch, on YouTube, all that. But make sure you hit that follow. Turn on notifications so you know when we live, so you can catch us doing all kind of various things over there. Yeah. What else?
And make sure you're going to forallnerds.com. If you'd like to support us in a variety of ways, one of those ways is by buying our merch. So we have on some merch from our older merch site, but we're going to be getting you some more designs because on forallnerds.com, we have some original things there that you can find nowhere else, such as the T'Challa and Friends shirt that you have seen. I know our Wong Was Right shirt is up there. And as mentioned, we're going to be bringing more amazing designs, which are already in the works. So we're really excited about that. When are we gonna put up the redacted shirt? I don't want to say the word of what it is right now. With our girl, it's your girl.
Oh, that's coming very, very soon.
Right.
I mean, that is in the works, along with a few other designs, perhaps some, gold in your life we might be looking at. We got a few, even though Black History Month might be over by the time the gold.
Right, let's say it's almost over.
Yeah, so I don't know. Damn, we might have to drop that gold one too. Then, I might have to wait.
We can still drop the gold. Black History Month is every month.
So. True indeed. But that gold is expensive, so we'll see.
Ooh.
We'll see about that. Yeah, but your girl is coming very soon. Two of our most fire designs of all time will be dropping. One design that we've been told is our most fire ever, and another one that we feel is our most fire ever. So you'll have to make the choice. You'll have to cop them both, perhaps. ForAllNerds.com. thank y'all. Thank you for all the love and support. We were just talking about that Smithsonian-ish that's going down October 19, 2023. This year is some of the most amazing and fantastic things in For All Nerds history is happening. And it's all because of y'all. So thank you so much. Peace.
Thank y'all. Love you.
Fan Bros, F-A-N-B-R-O-S.